hoped to have a video up sooner than this, but there's been a bandwidth issue here at the yard. If you hear any noise in the background, it's Lee. He's working on the electrical system this morning. And our odyssey here in the boatyard continues. The weather is warming up. A lot of boats that splashed in December have now returned, and their owners have gone back to northern climates. There's quite a few of us, maybe 20 people in all, that are still here working on our boats. And most of us are people that actually are living on our boats. We made friends with quite a few people that were here over the season working on their boats, and a camaraderie was established, and we missed that contact. It was always nice to exchange information on what'd you do today, how did it go, and so on. I entitled this episode Stolen Hearts for a couple of reasons. One of them is we're falling in love with Guaymas and its people. An example is one evening we were out walking in our barrio. A friend had told us about a torta stand, and we were looking for the torta stand. A woman came up to me and inquired in Spanish if she could help us, and I told her we were looking for the torta stand, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's only open Saturday and Sunday, but come to my house and I'll make you tortas." We accepted her invitation, and we're just amazed at her kindness and generosity. We have also lost our hearts to a personable stray dog and have adopted her. It's so nice to have a dog again, and even though having a dog on board poses some difficulties, I, the dog nut, am so happy. Sometimes in the boatyard, there are strange encounters. One morning, while Lee was gone in California, I had this guest in the cockpit for the entire day. The next morning, he was gone. I was amazed at the size and the intricacy of the camouflage. Here in Guaymas, we are lucky to have several competent craftsmen. One of those is Luis Hernandez, who is the go-to man for stainless. Finding his shop is interesting. As you can see, there is no sign. Luis constructed a new stainless bobstay fitting, copying the dimensions and construction of the old corroded one. After the original bobstay fitting was removed, we discovered the bolt holes were elongated and would require filling with epoxy and re-drilling. There are several inches of thickness at the bobstay location, and we were worried about re-drilling at the wrong angle and having holes that would be off-center. Lee solved this problem by greasing small diameter bolts, taping the fitting and backing plate with cellophane tape, and aligning the small bolts in the center of the holes. He then poured thickened epoxy around the bolts. Because the bolts were greased, the epoxy did not adhere to the bolts. When the epoxy had cured, Lee removed the bolts and had pilot holes to guide the drill bit when he drilled the holes for the actual bolts. Unfortunately, I don't have video of this. He can sometimes be hard to keep track of. The bobstay fitting was bedded with 4200 polysulfide and tightened slightly. After the polysulfide had cured, Lee tightened the nuts inside the boat while I kept a wrench on the bolt heads outside the boat to keep them from turning within the bedding compound. When the bobstay was originally removed, the backstay had been loosened to counteract the lack of tension on the bowsprit. With the installation of the new bobstay fitting, the backstay was then retensioned. That's one item we can now cross off our list. We called upon Luis again when, after polishing the brass compression post in the galley, revealed several small longitudinal cracks running for several inches. So you've got our new compression post here. How come it isn't straight like the other one?
Louise didn't have the right size tubing that would fit inside of these caps. So he took one that was slightly bigger, basically the same size as the cap, and then machined a insert into it that would fit inside of our caps here. That way, since the outside diameter now is the same size as these, it can fit right down onto these, have a larger matching surface area. And the old brass one, where this is angled here, it was only meeting at one, it wasn't angled on the old brass one, it was meeting at only one point. Now with the new way that he's done it, it'll actually match on the whole surface area, both here and here, and be a lot stronger.
So he cut the post to match the angle on the end fitting, huh?
And then reduce this so it would go inside. So he's got this insert into here that'll goes into here.
Because I remember the old one was just cut straight across and didn't actually have all the surface area of the end meeting the cap.
That's true. Its strength was only based on the tipping back and forth. There was only one point it was actually sitting on. Now this is sitting on all the points, both here and on the top.
Wow, so this is going to be actually better.
It'll be considerably stronger.
Because of the stainless?
Both that and the way it was engineered.
We are finding several things that need replacing. Here's the fuel fill hose. We felt it was too dicey to leave it as it was and decided to replace it. Replacing the hose entailed removing all the contents under the sink and in an adjacent locker to access the hose. Getting the old hose out was somewhat easier than putting in the new hose, as the old hose could be cut midway to facilitate its removal. Putting in the new hose required some slight modifications and the two of us to push and coax it around the various bins. It was definitely harder than the removal process. The output for the bilge pump follows a similar path, and upon investigating the bilge hose, Lee discovered it was very brittle and needed replacing too. Just as well as it is easier to replace both hoses at the same time. Of course, it was a good opportunity for me to paint the locker since everything was cleared out. Another item to cross off the list. Our Maxwell windlass has been disassembled and inspected.
Let's make sure the other side works. Got it?
Mm-hmm. It was difficult to disassemble, and Lee purchased a new wrench, which he cut in half in order to loosen a hard-to-reach bolt within the case. As the windlass shows evidence of leaking oil, replacement seals have been ordered. Maxwell, a New Zealand manufacturer and now under the umbrella of Bettis, provided excellent customer support even though our model is out of production. The windlass project is now on hold until we receive the seals.
Well, welcome back to the saga of power and plumbing. Having installed the bilge pump in the deepest part of the bilge and installed a new bilge hose, I'm now going to run new power to the bilge pump. We're opening up the panel here to see what we've got. Not too much of a disaster. A little bad that we have just electrical tape around about spare down there, and this one just cut. But otherwise, really not too bad of a deal. And I see which circuit I'm going to put the bilge pump on. Okay, now let's go down here to where all the power runs through. I've already removed the batteries and pull these aside so we can still run some 12-volt stuff but not short anything out.
So the batteries were sitting on top of that?
They were sitting on top there, and there were some pinched wires. This one was over here being pinched along with another power cable. So I moved them away, but let's take a look underneath this and see what we've got. Oh, what a mess. Well, as Trudy says, a mess will not keep us from splashing, but it's something I'd like to clean up later on. Let's make sure it's going to be okay. Let's make sure there's no safety issues. I see where the battery cable goes, and it goes to the battery switch. And I see there's a circuit breaker here. Looks like a 75 amp circuit breaker. And all these small circuits are all bussed together on the same circuit breaker. Potentially that could leave for a small cable like this to be shorted and actually get up to 75 amps of current go through before the circuit breaker blows and burn it up. Let's see, make sure everything's okay. Well, this is one case. This is what can happen when you have more power through a wire than the wire is created for. So this shorted somewhere along the line. So this becomes a safety issue. We're going to have to do something about it. It's not just a nice issue anymore, a neatness issue. So we will have to find a way to keep. Now some of these circuits you see have their own fuses in them. This one does, this one does, this one over here does. That's good. We're going to have to find some way of finding out where the rest of these go and make sure we're not going to get a short somewhere that's going to catch things on fire on us. Oh boy, some more fun.
On the light side, having a dog is an excuse to do some more exploring. We have always enjoyed the drive along the Malecón, and it's a great place to walk a dog. Most Mexican seaside cities have a Malecón, a wide scenic walkway along the waterfront. Here in Guaymas, it is the custom to congregate on the Malecón Saturday and Sunday evenings. People enjoy the cooling breeze off the water, each other, and the food stands. Last Sunday, we had our dinner here, which consisted of prepared fruit with chamoy sauce, lime juice, and tajin, churros, and tostilote, a bag of tostitos sliced open with corn and nacho sauce laid over the chips. As in most places, dogs are welcome too, and it is a great icebreaker to have a dog with you. And here is a lovely fisherman's trail at Punto Mero. Join us next time for more on the boat projects and life in Guaymas.